the time you're watching this, maybe the festivities are out of the way, maybe you're watching this before Christmas, but either way, the Malibu Stakes is coming up. We're returning to Santa Anita and to California, and the racing over the festive period is absolutely wonderful for days upon days upon days. Luke Elder alongside Tom Collins. Kind of the best bit about the festive period is the sporting side of things. Do not tell my family, but I believe it.
It's the same for me. It really is. Look, Christmas Day is fantastic from a family perspective, but there is a bit of stress in there as well. And, you've got to sort the presents. You've all got to get up early. You've got to do, stuff for the kids. And yeah, it's tough. Boxing Day, that's when we enjoy ourselves. Plenty of horse racing, plenty of NFL. Obviously, there's NFL on Christmas too, if you can sneak it on the TV. But we're talking about horse racing here. What a card at Santa Anita. I could have chosen 3 or 4 races to put on the running order for this podcast. And it's not just about Boxing Day either. Santa Anita meet continues with fantastic events for the next few weeks. And then it leads straight into Gulfstream. And then before you know it, Kentucky Derby trials.
Exactly. Speaking of Kentucky Derby, we've got a Kentucky Derby winner to talk about today as well in the form of Mystik Dan. But we're taking a look at the Malibu Stakes to say that's over at Santa Anita. Shout out to our sponsors for this podcast as well. That's SBK. If you haven't downloaded their new app, which they're working on all the time, they're adding plenty more things to it. And hopefully us, then you can go over when you place your first £10 bet, you get £40 in free bets. T's and C's apply, 18 plus only, and please gamble responsibly. But we don't like them that much because we're going to try and take a bit of money off them in this podcast with the Malibu Stakes. Go check out our NFL podcast as well. And we're on the push for 450 subscribers. We are on 429 at the moment. So that's our Christmas present. We're going to try and
you stole my line.
Oh,
you stole my line. I was going to say, give us a Christmas present and do that for us, but you've done it.
It's very basic.
Oh, I thought it was quite good.
I mean, it's very basic. It's very basic. I mean, our Christmas present to you guys is going to be many, many winners, hopefully.
Yes.
And then you can just tell your friends. Just tell your friends, be like, oh, these guys, by the way, well worth a subscribe, get them to 450. And then after that, we'll be greedy and want 500. That's about right.
It is right. Well, we want 500 right now, to be fair, but it's all about the little increments, isn't it? But as you were saying, plenty of winners coming. And on that SBK point, I've got to do the tradition. Link in the description down below, guys. Click that link, sign up, and take advantage of the offer that Luke told you about.
You're getting less aggressive with the pointing.
When it gets to the NFL podcast that we're filming in about 30 minutes, there'll be a super aggressive point, don't you worry.
That means business. This is more relaxed and chilled. It's Malibu. It's nice. It's laid back. Let's talk about pace in the Malibu, because it's a fascinating contest. You've got runners coming from all warps of life. I mean, you've got Bentornato in here who came from the Breeders' Cup Sprint last time around. Obviously, we talk about the likes of Stronghold to mention. Mystik Dan, obviously, is a Kentucky Derby winner. It's a fascinating race.
Yeah, it really is. It's a grade 1, not only in status, but actually in the horses that are involved as well. It's a proper grade 1. There's a lot of speed in the race as well. Bentornato, who you've already talked about, should go forward from the inside gate. I think Pilot Commander will push up for Bob Baffert as well. And Raging Torrent, who's drawn way out wide, who actually liked in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He ran okay without really troubling the judge. He's a forward-going type. So there are 3 proper front runners, or at least we think there are 3. I believe Bentornato and Pilot Commander will be the 2 that really blaze out in front. And I just don't think Bob Baffert will want to give up an inch with Pilot Commander. I think he's going to proper send him. That then gives Luis Saez an issue with Bentornato. Does he go with him, hold the rail position and go forward? Possibility. Or does he just rein back and take a stalking role? Again, another possibility. But there should be some relatively strong pace up front, which will make it a fair race for all involved, and hopefully the best horse will win.
Exactly that. I kind of feel like with these races that Bob Baffert kind of feels like they're his races. He's the guy that farms the grade 1s in California. Unfortunately, this one isn't a 5-runner 2-year-old race where he can have half the field and the only ones with chances in. So he's going to have to work a bit harder, but he's still got a solid chance of landing it.
Yeah, he does. I think Pilot Commander is probably his number 1 option in this race. Winterfell's a bit average, so is Imagination, I think the other one is. But yeah, he's got 3 horses in there. Look, he does think it's his race. He does dominate these events. I don't think he'll be winning this one either. I feel like we're both kind of singing off the same hymn sheet, albeit we may have different picks.
Yes, we're going down the same road, but we're taking a different exit regards to selections. Let's talk about the first ever winner on the Turf and Touchdowns podcast, though. That is Mystik Dan, who you put up when winning the Kentucky Derby at 18 to 1 or so at a massive price. He's not done masses since. He ran well in the Preakness behind Seize the Grey, and then obviously in the Belmont, he didn't really do much.
Yeah, that was almost 10 months ago, the Kentucky
Mhm.
Derby. I mean, it's flown by, hasn't it? Yeah, he's been a very good horse for connections. Obviously, no Torpedo Anna, but still a very good performer for Ken McPeak. The Kentucky Derby win was solid, but he did get a dream trip. As much as I obviously was kind of biased because I did want him to win, as you say, it was a tip on the pod. He did get the perfect run through, and he probably wasn't the best horse in the race. Probably the third best behind Sierra Leone and Forever Young. Came back in the Preakness. I thought he ran perfectly well,
Mhm.
finishing second. That was Mystik Dan's performance, and he got beaten. Subsequently, beaten in the Belmont, where I don't know, maybe he didn't like the trip. Things went against him. It just wasn't a great run. Now he comes back off the layoff. The question is, one, is he fit? Two, is he going to build on what he actually showed earlier in the 3-year-old campaign? And three, is he even good enough to beat this lot at this part of the season? I have queries on all three, to be honest. The fairground works have been solid, and he's deserving to be towards the top of the market just purely on the Derby victory. But at the same time, I want to take him on off the layoff, now switching to a track he's never run at before.
Surely this is a point of a Mystic Dan to go to Gulfstream Park and run in the Pegasus.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't see any other reason why you'd ship out for the Malibu at this time of year. I know it's a grade one, but you can keep him fresh and then go in off a long layoff. I suppose they just want to get rid of some of the rust off him. But
Yeah.
if that is the case, I definitely don't want to be betting him. Like if he's 85% fit, I don't think he'd beat half of this field.
I completely agree. I like they've given him the break and they freshened him up a bit. Like his latest work was 59-4. He was first of that was over 5 furlongs. He was first of 56 on the day. It's a nice time, but you kind of you expect horses of this ability to post those sorts of times, Tom. It's not a standout wow time. It's nice to have, but again, you're talking about a Kentucky Derby winner.
Exactly, yeah. We're talking about a horse with loads and loads of quality. So the time is kind of expected. If you look at the work tab, it's not terrible, but I mean, he didn't have a single work from his last run, which came in June, until the end of October, which is 2 months ago. So he's only kind of just got back
Mhm.
to working after a break. He's had 9 or 8 works. Some of them have been good, some of them have been maintenance works, and just getting his fitness back up. To me, he screams like this is a prep, and if it is, I don't want to be taking a short price. I feel like he's definitely going to be favourite in here.
Yeah, I would imagine he will be. Whether he goes off favourite, we'll see. I think that will tell us the vibes on what's actually expected of Mystic Dan. We'll learn a lot about him in the market, but I think there are others that you can play in the race. One of them has to be Bentornato, who comes here off the back of such a good run at the Breeders' Cup in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He managed to win at Parks the time before that. He kind of came a little bit from left field, but it was such a good run at the Breeders' Cup. He's got to be a player in here.
Yeah, he's a very nice and fast horse. One thing I didn't mention about Mystic Dan, by the way, is the trip. Obviously, he's
Yeah.
he's more proven over a mile plus, and this is down to 7. So not only have we got all of those factors, but he's dropping to sprints. A sprinter is Bentonato. He's an out and out sprinter, 6, 7 furlong horse. He won his first 4 outings in fantastic fashion down in Gulfstream. Then he ran third behind a couple of nice types in the Saudi Derby. There was a run in between where he was slightly disappointing at Gulfstream. And he's come back this year in really good form, actually. And that recent run of the Breeders' Cup Sprint was undoubtedly a career best from him when he ran second. He draws inside, which we've already talked about. It kind of forces the hand of Louis Sires to go forward, whether that be maintaining the rail and hitting the front or just in a stalking role. I think it might be the former. From there, he's going to have to be strong. He's going to have to sustain quite a fast pace throughout the race, which is not beyond the realms of possibility based on the Breeders' Cup run. My only doubt with him is coming back off the Breeders' Cup. Can he perform? Horses peak for the start of November and then they can drop off. That's not every horse, but it does happen. If he can maintain the level of form he showed at the Breeders' Cup, then he's probably the horse to beat over this trip rather than Mystic Dan, and he could go off favourite. But I just have that nagging doubt that he may just drop off a little bit, especially with the pace up front, and therefore I'm going to bet against him.
Yeah, he's 3-1 on the morning line. Is Bentonato. One thing I do like about his Breeders' Cup run is that yes, he went forward, and I know he got beat in the end, and he was second behind Straight No Chaser, but he did manage to burn off Federal Judge, who was one of the fancied runners in the race, the Brad Cox horse. Federal Judge faded back into fifth. Bentonato wasn't stopping at the line, so it wasn't as if there was a massive pace bias and he had to be towards the front end. Horses came from a little way off the pace, and he still managed to hold up well. I always like to see that in any race, let alone in a Breeders' Cup contest.
Yeah, absolutely. He was strong. And, when you've got a front runner who's strong off the front, especially when they go fast fractions, then you've got to mark them up. I will say that was over 6. He's probably like a 6.5 furlong horse. He lost over 7 earlier in the year. I think it was in the Robert Hilton or Hilltop. I can't remember which race, but he did lose earlier in the year going 7, finishing second behind Valentine Candy. So he can be vulnerable in the last, half a furlong or so. But it depends how the race sets up for him. He does stay the 7, just not as strongly as others. And what's key about Bentornato, and a positive, I will say, is that he was shipped to the West Coast at the start of the month, and he posted a really nice breeze at Santa Anita last week. So he's obviously in fine fettle right now.
There is an opening market through.
Oh, go on.
Mystik Dan's favourite, 3-1.
3-1. Wow,
The
that's
whole
10
field, the whole field are 3-1, out to 9-1.
Wow, that is tight.
Yeah, so no chances taken. Bentornato is 5-1 alongside Winterfell. Raging Torrent is 11-2, 8-1 Pilot Commander, 8-1 Stronghold, 9-1 Imagination, and 9-1 Senior Officer.
9-1 Senior Officer.
I knew that would be the one that perked your interest.
Well, here we go then.
I wonder who Tom's selection is. I mean, he was the one that when I looked at or saw the price, I was like, I don't know about you. That's wrong.
That's mental. That is mental.
From a value perspective, that's the play in Senior Officer. But I mean, look, he's joint outsider of the field at 9-1. It won't be that way for long. Even when this podcast comes out, they might have changed. But it's over the festive period. People aren't looking that far ahead, so potentially the prices could hold.
Providing I don't absolutely kill it in a minute. Yes, hopefully it holds. I mean, that price is incredible. Look, should we move into picks? Because I feel like this is the perfect segue.
Whoever are you going for, Tom Collins?
I'm going to take a shot on Senior Officer. I was not. No way. I wasn't expecting 9-1. I was expecting half of that, to be honest. When does a Brad Cox horse ever get overpriced? That's very, very rare. Now, he does have to prove a couple of things. Firstly, class. He's yet to run in a Grade 1. He's coming off the back of a maiden victory and first time up. Wait, is that right? No. First time up, he won a maiden and then subsequently finished second in what was an allowance race, but technically was a graded race based on the horses that were involved in it. So he has to prove class. We don't know he's a proper Grade 1 horse. Secondly, I don't want to take any shorter than 4-1, which was what I originally had in my notes. But if he's 9-1, this is completely irrelevant. Purely because the extra distance is a question mark. But I think he'll love the extra distance. If you watched either of his 2 replays so far, the best furlong of his race is the final furlong. The maiden, he came from 10th, was wide on the turn, and absolutely blew past them in the home straight, especially in the final furlong. That last little kick and, when the stamina starts to get involved over sprinting trips, that was when he was strongest. So that's a tick. And then last time up, he didn't get an ideal trip. Florent Giroux was in between horses for no reason, angled out. And as soon as he did angle out, he started to pick up again. So the distance is a small question mark, but I think it'll be fine. Therefore, I wouldn't want to show a price. But he's a huge price in here. I think he's going to get a nice trip in behind the speed. If those 3 that we talked about right at the top of the show go forward, that he's going to sit in a stalking or a closing role, and he could be the one to pick up the pace if it collapses. And Brad Cox horses that move up into Grade 1 company after they've been beaten in an allowance race, why would he put it in here if he didn't think Senior Officer was capable of winning? Going all the way out to the West Coast? I mean, it feels like there's a mission to be had here. And Senior Officer, for me, at 9-1, I'm going to advise this horse each way, but I wouldn't be surprised if he won.
Yeah, I feel a bit weird now because from a value perspective, Senior Officer is the play. Honestly, both our selections are overpriced in that market. The market will look nothing like that when we get towards race day. It will be a shadow of its former self. Go back, listen to the prices. Whenever you're watching this now, look at the market, and I bet it's different in almost every single capacity. But yes, the value at those prices is without doubt Senior Officer, but Bentornato is also value. We spoke about Bentornato. Look, the latest run in the Breeders' Cup was good, finishing second behind Straight No Chaser. Raging Torrent was a little way behind that day. Frankie takes a ride on Raging Torrent. I did like Raging Torrent on for the Breeders' Cup to run well, but I'm not really sure regards to this contest. And I love the way that Bentornato went through that race. I say he was on the speed. He burnt off a couple of other front runners, and he still managed to hang about. I think 5-1 is a bit of an overreaction. Louis Sayers is in town as well to take the ride on board at Bentornato. So they're retaining Louis Sayers. He's ridden 2 of the last 4 times, including over in Saudi. So I'll stick with Bentornato. I do think, honestly, I think both of the prices about our horses are wrong. I think 5-1 and 9-1 are a bit silly, in all honesty. But I think this is what happens when you let an English trader have a go at a US race blind.
Yeah, and especially around this time of year when the traders are really kind of looking at all of the cards we have on Boxing Day over in the UK. I think we've got 11 race meets, which is completely. I know if you're watching this from the US, you're thinking, well, that's just a standard Friday or Saturday. That's not standard over here. So all of their efforts have been put into the UK stuff by the looks of things because this market is way wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if Bentornato went off half the price, and the same can be said for Senior Officer. So I think we've got the right two value plays anyway. Hopefully the race pans out well for both of us and we can at least be celebrating a winner, but maybe even a 1-2.
Yeah, absolutely. If you get those prices, then good job, well done. You've at least beaten the market. I've got one more horse racing present for everyone because I think there's a horse at the fairgrounds that I think will take a lot of beating. In race 8 over in New Orleans, I think Chase's Magic comes out of a very strong maiden. I napped a horse actually the other day that ran at about 28-1 from that race in the form of Pretty Capable, who was back in 4th place, but an eye catcher. He ran in one of the hottest maidens I can remember ever at fairgrounds. He finished a very good 4th. He wasn't beaten all that far. He franked that form. Chase's Magic went through the race better as well. He posted a speed figure of 70. His morning line is 7-2. He's not going to be 7-2. Honestly, I'd be delighted if he was 7-4. That would be a fantastic price. He's got a couple of interesting horses. He's got a Brad Cox horse in there as well to worry about a touch. He's beaten a Brad Cox horse in the past on that debut run. I think Chase's Magic comes out of a very strong maiden. I'm going to throw up Chase's Magic as another selection. And also, if Chase's Magic were to run well or to win, the horse that was back in 3rd in that race, Zoom, he runs on the 28th over at Oaklawn Park in race something. Do the work yourself. I can't do everything for you. But if Chase's Magic runs well, then Zoom will very much be a play over at Oaklawn Park, or at least one of interest. He runs in a weaker race as well. But Chase's Magic, the selection for me over at Fairgrounds in the big one that we're actually previewing. I'm with Bentornato. Tom is with Senior Officer. I would love to stick around and say how nice Christmas is, Tom, but we kind of have to get going because we've got 2 NFL previews to do. One for the actual Christmas Day games and also Boxing Day, and then we've actually got our normal one as well. So it's busy at Turf and Touchdowns.
Yeah, it really is. You guys who are watching this video right now and you're listening to us, just skip on over to our NFL video. If you would like making money, and everyone does, especially around the Christmas period, hopefully we can do it in those videos as well. We can provide you some winners. We've been in flying form of late, to be fair, and that's not just us hyping up the podcast to get viewers. We genuinely have. So click on across right now while Luke gives his outro.
Exactly. Just after I finish talking, that's when you click, okay? So let's practice this. Goodbye. Click. Right? We all good? Right. Okay. Stay safe. Look after one another. Happy Christmas. Go click.